Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Yasodanandana Bhajajana Ranjanam Yasodanandana Bhajajana Ranjanam Yamunatila Vanachari Yamunatila Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhavam Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhavam Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Yasodanandana Bhajadana Ranjanam Yasodanandana Bhajadana Ranjanam Yamunatila Banachari Yamunatila Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, dear worshipable devotees. Thank you all for joining. Today we have a very, very special devotee, His Grace Charu Prabhu, who will be speaking on this wonderful verse, the prayers to Lord Matsya Avatar by Satyavat Muni. So His Grace Charu Prabhu is a very senior disciple of Srila Prabhupada, also an initiating guru in our International Society for Kṛṣṇa Consciousness. And the temple you see behind Prabhuji's background is which Prabhuji and Mataji have kind of personally built from scratch in Salt Lake City, Utah. And not just one, they recently built one more in downtown. So it's not easy to build a small center, what to speak of building a mansion for the pleasure of Supreme Personality of Godhead. It all ties to Prabhuji's great enthusiasm, sincerity, eagerness to share Krishna consciousness. And there are practically, I think Prabhuji shared in the last classes, there is hardly any Indian community there. So all the support and Krishna is sending is from the Western outreach. And so I can go talking about the temple will take an hour. Maybe one day Prabhuji can share that. But now I would like to kind of, we want to hear from Prabhuji about this topic of prayers to Supreme Lord. So we kindly welcome you with a garland of gratitude and by loudly chanting 3 times, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol.
Hari Bol, Hari Bol.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Please enlighten us. Hare Krishna.
Thank you as always for having me on, giving me the opportunity to associate with all the great devotees from Florida. Om Agana Timarandasya Anganangana Sarakya Chaksurin Miritam Yana Tajmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manovisam Stapitam Yana Bhutare Sayam Rupa Karamayam Darati Swaparantikam Vandeham Siguru Seta Parakamanam Sri Gurun Vaishnavam Sta Sri Rupam Sagadatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Stam Satevam Sadvaitam Suvarutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Larita Shivishikan Vitam Stam Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pistaya Bhutare Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Taram Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesa Sanyvari Praskita Desarani Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Siddhi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Ram Rama Hare Hare. I can't raise my arms too high with this background because like Vritasura, I get my arms cut off. When I raise my arms, then my Krishna in his own way reveals my true nature. So I have to keep my arms in front of my torso. This is a sweet verse. I enjoyed perusing it in advance. Yaneda Vindaksha Pado Pasharpanam Misha Bhavat Sarva Sharit Priyatmanam Yate Teresham Vitagatmana Satam Adi Drisho Yad Vapura Bhutam Hi Naha. O my Lord, possessing eyes like the petals of a lotus, O worship of the demigods, who are in the bodily concept of life, is fruitless in all respects. But because you are the supreme friend and dearmost super soul of everyone, worship of your lotus feet is never useless. You've therefore manifested your form as a fish. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The demigods he stands right outside my window. The demigods like Indra, Chandra, and Surya are ordinary living entities who are differentiated parts and parcels of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord expands himself through the living beings. Nityo, Nityanam, Chedadish, Chedanam. His personal Vishnu Tattva forms, which are all spiritual, are called Swamsha, and the living entities who are differentiated parts are called Vibhinamsha. Some of the Vibhinamsha forms are spiritual, and some are a combination of matter and spirit. The conditioned souls in the material world are different from the external bodies made of material energy. Thus, the demigods living in the upper planetary systems and the living entities living in the lower planetary systems are of the same nature. Nonetheless, those living as human beings on this planet are sometimes attracted to worshiping the demigods in the higher planetary systems. Such worship is temporary. As the human beings on this planet have to change their bodies to ta dehantara praptiya, so the living entities known as Indra, Chandra, Varuna will also have to change their bodies in due course of time. Stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Antavantu phalam tejan tadbhavati medisham. Men of small intelligence worship the demigods, and their fruits are limited and temporary. Kamas tasyarigana praditena devatam. Those who do not know the position of the demigods are inclined to worship the demigods for some material purpose, but the results of such worship are never permanent. Consequently, here it is said, Yate taresham pritag atmanam satam pado pasharpanam mrisha bhavet. In other words, if one is to worship someone else, he must worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then his worship will never be fruitless. Even a slight attempt to worship the Supreme Personality of God is a permanent asset. Therefore, as recommended in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Chakva Sharanam Charanam Bhujam Hare. One should take to the worship of the lotus feet of Hari, even if this means giving up the so-called occupational duty assigned because of the particular body one has accepted. Because worship in terms of the body is temporary, it does not bear any permanent fruit, but worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead gives immense benefit. The first Rabindaksha brings to mind that famous verse from the 10th canto, Yane Aravindaksha Vimukta Maninas. You have Rabindaksha, which is the lotus side, lotus feet Lord, and then you have Aravindaksha, which means without worshiping. Yane Aravindaksha Vimukta Manina Trayashtad Avashuddha Buddhi. Those who think they can become liberated by bypassing bhaja, worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by aspiring to become one with the Lord, thinking to become merging with the transcendental effulgence of the Lord. He said, if you do not make as your destination, if you do not aim for the shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, then Avashuddha Buddhi, your intelligence is impure. You have some knowledge. You know the difference between the body and the soul. But identifying yourself as soul, the last pitfall is then you think that you're the supreme soul. The president is American, I'm an American. President equals B, I equal B, so then I'm the president. From a logical point of view, it makes certain sense, but from a objective, spiritual, truthful point of view, it makes no sense at all. The president is an American, I'm an American, but that doesn't make me the president. That doesn't make us non-different. We're still two distinct living beings. And he has so much more power than I do. So if I were to think, well, I'm the president, I can do whatever I want. I can drive whatever car I want. I can fly whatever plane I want. I can take the same liberties as an individual citizen that the president takes. I'll find myself in trouble pretty darn quickly. Fact is that the president has advantages. He has powers that are denied to me. And if I assume incorrectly that I can take on the powers of the most powerful of all the Americans, then that's pretty much going to guarantee me a jail sentence, some negative results. This is called Avashuddha Buddhi, to aspire to become one with God. And it is said that identifying with the Brahman, the impersonal effulgence of the Lord, doing penances and austerities may separate you from the average person, the fruitive workers. And you may in fact rise very high by dint of those penances and austerities. But the problem is you are a sentient being. You are Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema. You are Shuruvai Jiva Krishna Das. That's who you are. You're a sentient being. You're meant to be active. When Arjuna wants to abdicate from the battlefield and sit and meditate in some idyllic sylvan forest ashram, Krishna says, Sadhusham Chesiteshvasya Prakritam Gyanavabhri. Everybody has a certain nature. That nature comes from me. And you have to act according to your nature. We can't even maintain our bodies without acting. The problem with hovering in the Brahmajyoti is that very quickly you get bored. We're meant for engagement. All of us have, sometimes we plan an airline trip, and in order to catch the plane, to be in the boarding area half an hour before passengers go on board, it's preceded by a morning of frantic activity, making sure you turn the oven off, making sure that the mail is discontinued, the kids are going to be okay, the traffic is bad, you can't find a parking space, you just barely make it. All you want to do is you just think, if I could just sit down in that nice comfortable seat on the airplane, that's all I want. I just want to rest. I just want to disengage from all these engagements, last minute preparations. Finally, you board, you find your seat, you sit down. Oh, what a relief. Now all I have to do is just sit here for 4 or 5 hours until we get where we're going. That relief quickly turns to boredom. Am I right? 1 hour goes by. There's a big overweight person next to you. You can't put your arm on the armrest. The air is bad. You start to get a headache. There's nothing to do. You're on the window seat and you want to use the bathroom, but the two people between you and the aisle are asleep. You don't know what to do. You're uncomfortable. You're headachy. After a couple hours, your lower back starts to ache. So initially, what seemed to be, a nice relief, a nice change of pace, now you say, I can't, how much longer do you have to go? I want to get down. I want to get back on the ground. I want to stretch my legs, move around. So it may appeal, if we're not acting God-centeredly, if we're acting self-centeredly, all those actions become bombs, little bombs, time bombs. For every action is opposite and equal reaction. So some of those seeds, reactions we planted even in a past life, sometimes previous in this life, some of them are just planted and they're starting to germinate. Some of them were planted a long time ago and we're just experiencing the bitter and sweet fruit of those actions. But every single action that we do for our own satisfaction brings a reaction. And because we don't care, generally speaking, especially in the West, for scriptural injunctions, the vast majority of those reactions are going to be extremely unpleasant. And so being harassed by the results of our own actions, we suffer. So it's very appealing to leave off of actions. It's very appealing concept to become passive, to disengage. That's what motivates the impersonalists to elevate themselves, merge into the Brahmajyoti. The problem is, it's not very long before you get bored, like sitting in an airplane or going and sitting in the middle of a field somewhere. How long can you sustain that? You need engagement. Although activities give us suffering, it's not activity per se that gives us suffering, but it's self-centered activities that give us suffering. Kapil tells his mother, the same thing that causes us suffering, which is to act in ignorance of who we are and what our relationship is with God. That same activity, when the consciousness is changed, when it's no longer for the promotion of this material body and extension of this body, but it's now for Kṛṣṇa, then that same activity, which was the cause of our bondage and suffering previously, becomes the moksha dharma povitam, becomes the cause of our liberation. So if you approach life with aravindaksha, without the lotus feet, without a destination in mind, you're going to be frustrated. You're going to miss it. It is said, Yata turu mula nisayachana tatskanda tripyoti pujo panopadyakscha yatendinam tatayava savaram achuteja. You cannot nourish the tree by pouring water on the flower, the twigs, and the fruits. It may make sense on a certain level. Well, why just the root? Why are you so fanatic? Why are you so narrow-minded? Why just the root? Be liberal. Be liberal-minded. Do the fruits, the flowers, the leaves. Don't be so fanatic, narrow-minded. Why Kṛṣṇa? Why not the demigods? Why not? The answer is Kṛṣṇa is Ishvara Parama. He's the supreme root cause, karana, karanam. From him, everything comes. Nitya, nityanam, chedanas, chetanam. I believe it was Dhruva Maharaj when he saw the four-handed Lord appeared before him. He said, Tiryan nagadvija sarisa deva daichad marchadabihi. He says there are 8,400,000 species spread throughout these material universes. Chala, jala, nana, stavara, krima, pakshana, dakshanam, chatur, lakani, manushanam. He says, Tiryan nagadvija sarisva deva, but you can look in vain through the species of snakes, through the species of human beings, through the species of reptiles, through the species of aquatics, through the species of mammals, to find a form such as that one which is standing before me. It's unique. It's one of a kind. It has nothing to do with the actions and reactions of this material world. It's not byproduct of karma. Krishna is unique, he's single, he's individual, just like here, Satyavrata. There are fish, it's true, there are fish, but this is not a fish like any other fish. He's basically saying, you can look at trout, you can look at sharks, you can look at barracudas, you can look at tumangilas, you can look at chubs, you can look at tunas, you can look at all the species, and you'll never find a fish like this that came out of a nostril, and now for whom the ocean is too small. You'll never find a fish like that. So I understand because of the uniqueness and singularity of this fish, there's never been, nor will there ever be a fish like this generated from material nature. Therefore, I can understand that this is the root. This is a plenary Ashramsha incarnation of the Sarvakaranakam, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Nityam Nityanam Chetanam Chetanam Ekyo Vedadikamam. The Lord differs from ourselves. Those of us who are, what does it say in the verse? What is the term here? Pritak Atmanam. Pritak Atmanam means living entities who have material bodies different from the soul. The Lord is Advaitam Achyutam Ananta Rupam Adyam Parana Parashanovyam Shah. The Lord is Vaita in the sense that there's no difference between his soul and his body. There's no difference between the inside and the outside. But we are not Dvaita. We are Pritag Atmanam. That means we are spirits, the same qualities as the Lord on the inside, but on the outside, we're matter. The inside is the internal energy of the Lord, and on the outside is the external energy of the Lord. So now let's look at the Vedic literature in general and its author, Vyasadeva. 4 topics are discussed in the Vedas: Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. Economic development, religiosity, liberation, sense gratification. And sure, Vyasadeva has tried to put them in an overall context of spirituality, of progressive advancement, moving forward, bringing people from lower level to higher level. Sometimes the example is given, and you can't get fire from earth. First, you have to get from earth, you have to get wood, and then having gotten wood, you can get fire. So there are people in the mode of ignorance, people in the mode of passion, people in the mode of goodness. Not everybody can adopt pure devotional service, and reasoning in that way, Vyasadeva compiled the Vedas to gradually elevate the living beings. The problem is, whenever you describe anything other than the Supreme Lord, or any practice other than devotional service to the Lord without any tinge of mental speculation or fruitive activity, the problem is you create confusion. You create ambiguity. You get people going off in the wrong direction. The only objective reality is Ishvara Parama Kṛṣṇa, who is Sarva Karana Karanam Satchidananda Vigraha. Fact is, there is nothing but Kṛṣṇa. We are nothing but the separated parts and parcels of Kṛṣṇa, like sparks from the flame. The material world is nothing but Bina Prakritir Ashtada. It is nothing but the inferior temporary energy of the Lord. There is nothing but Kṛṣṇa. And therefore, whatever you desire to describe, which is separate from Kṛṣṇa, simply reacts with different forms, names, and results to agitate the mind as the wind agitates a boat, which has no resting place. 14th verse, 5th chapter, 1st canto, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Tato nyata kinchana yad vivaksha, pritag vishashat, krita rupana bahina, karichit kwapi chadushta, labeta vata hata neri vashpatam. Rupa namabihi pritag vishas. If you encourage anyone in any sort of a vision, other than that there is only Kṛṣṇa, you're agitating the mind, bringing about confusion. Now, it all leads to transcendental realization. That was Vyasadev's purpose. But he's bringing people to Krishna consciousness through further activities, through speculative knowledge, through mystic power. And ultimately, the idea is to purify people. Anya bilasita sanyanya jnana karmane anukunale Krishna. Purify others of those anarthas and bring them to the platform of pure devotional service. But in that process, he spins out all kinds of things which are not purely related to bhakti, including there's a lot of discussion about the worship of demigods in different forms and names. Now, the demigods are non-different from us in as much as their bodies and their selves differ. That means where the bodies are as a result of their karma. They're entangled in the same way that we are. So how does one entangled person get any benefit by worshiping another entangled person? Let's say we're all lying in a room in Tampa and we're all tied hand and foot. We can't move a muscle, can't even move our little finger. Is there any way that anyone can help anybody else to get free? Is there? Every one of us is bound hand and foot. The demigods are no different than we are. They're bound by material bodies in the same way that we are. So how is worshiping the demigod going to do anything other than just confuse and puzzle people? And the result is that, what to speak of the followers of the Vedas, Yaimam Pushpitam Vacham Prabhavati Vedavata Nanyad Astiti Padanam Karmatmakam Shraga Parajanmakam Kriya Vishishit Bhogashwarigati Matim. That in the name of transcendence, Vyasadeva has positively done a disservice by encouraging people in the way of Dharma, Artha, Karma, Moksha. Not aiming and shooting the arrow directly at the ultimate target, which is pure, unalloyed devotional service, sheltered at the lotus feet of the Lord. And so people, as a result of this, so many different schools and practices have arisen because of the confusion which lies there intrinsically in the Vedas themselves. And what to speak of the followers of the Vedas? Srila Vyasadeva himself sits puzzled and confused. In one purport, Prabhupada actually goes so far as to say that Srila Vyasadeva should not have compiled any Puranas other than the Bhagavad Purana. Why? Because even a slight deviation from pure devotional service, Dharma prodito kaitavo tranimatsaram vedam vashtamato shivanam tapa Śrīmad-Bhāgavate mahamani kimba para sadyo aridiri. Any cheating, any taint, any alloy with the metal of pure devotional service, yata kanchanam kanchanam vidam tata diksha vidanam, is going to cause divergence. It's going to cause duality. So if even a slight deviation from pure devotional service can create such havoc that the author of the Vedas himself sits confused and despondent, then what happens when people take the divergent views of the Vedas and start a school and start making disciples and start their own parampara and start actively preaching and propagating? It's chaos. It's chaos. It's just all of that does nothing to purify and elevate society. It just divides people and confuses people. Therefore, Srila Rupa Goswami writes in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Shruti Smriti Paranadi Panchari Aikantikir Utpatyayaiva Kalpete. Devotional service that ignores the essence of the Vedic literatures, the essence of the Puranas and the Bhagavad Purana, as well as the Narada Prancha, simply is an unnecessary disturbance in society. This is also confirmed in the second canto. Ta kavir namashuya vadatat syada parmatayo vivashaya siddheni atatin parisharam tatta samik samano. It is said, Ta kavir namashuya vad artha. Someone who is enlightened, knows the difference between the soul and the body, knows the difference between the soul and the supreme soul, they never unnecessarily endeavor for the bells and whistles that culture offers them. The common thread between those who are enlightened, like Sukadeva Goswami, Maharaj Pariksit, so many different Rishabh Dev, Kapil Dev, the common thread is that they don't even lift a finger more than what it is minimally necessary to keep body and soul together. They are intelligently fixed, and being intelligently fixed, they never endeavor for things which are not only not necessary, but are distracting. They'll take you away from the path of devotional service, waste your time, eat up the valuable days and minutes and hours of this life to leave you with nothing but ashes in your hands. Sukadeva Goswami goes, Satyam Sitokim Kashipu Prayashir. He says, what's wrong with the ground? Why do you need a soft mattress and a bed? What's wrong with the ground? Why do you need pillows? Just use your arms. Why do you need utensils? Just eat with your fingers, eat with your hands. Why do you need fancy drinks? Now in Utah, there's an epidemic. I don't know if it's the same in Florida. You have all these soda shops. People drive in and they get all these fizzy drinks which are full of sugar. We have one down the road. It's called So Delicious. Get it? So delicious. And there's always like 10 cars at the drive-by window. And its stuff is just garbage. It's just garbage. Why do you need So Delicious when you have flowing rivers? Why do you need Abercrombie and Fitch when you've got the barks of trees? You've got cotton and wool naturally produced. Of course, not that we should all live like Sukadeva Goswami, but our leisure time, and we have lots of it as humans. The animals don't have leisure time. 24 hours a day, eating, sleeping, ahara, nidyavayam, mitunam. If you're an animal, you have no latitude. You have no leisure time. You can't go golfing, can't go boating, can't go to the gym. Just eating, sleeping, mating, and family. But human beings, even Prabhu said a poor man in India with half an acre of land, in 3 months, hard work, he can produce enough food and shelter to maintain himself for 12 months of a year. So a simple farmer with half an acre of land and a cow really only has to work 3 months for his maintenance. So the question is, what are you going to do with the leisure time? That's the issue. That's the pivotal point. The problem with modern society is we have so much leisure time. We don't even grow our own food. We're divorced from the sources of our sustenance totally. We're pampered. Everything comes to us through the supermarkets. Practically speaking, for many people, there's more leisure time than they know what to do with. And so they try to take that leisure time and the manufactured products of a technologically advanced society, and what they try to do is something which is fatal to the soul, something which kills the soul. Nibrita tarshayer upagiyamana bhavoshoda chata ka utama shokugana puman virajata bina pashudna. Who would object to taking sumptuous vegetarian prasadam, associating with devotees, singing, dancing, and glorifying the source of us all in melodious kirtan? When we get tired, take a break, just listen to some philosophy from one of the devotees who's very astute and realized, and after having churned the philosophy and satisfied the mind, go back to singing and dancing and chanting your aerobic exercise, and then feasting and repeat. And I mean, who would have a problem with that except the killer of the soul? And that pretty much refers to everybody who buys into the modern culture. You cannot pursue excessive sense gratification. You cannot raise the standard. Whatever pains and suffering that you're going to experience in this life are already fixed up by the past life. There's nothing you can do. to increase your pleasure and reduce suffering. Tashaiva heto prayate de kovidao na labyate yat. Ta labyate dukavan kalena sarvata gabhira ramasha. It's already fixed up. We don't get down on our knees at night and say our prayers for the next day. Lord, please grant this prayer that tomorrow I break my leg. Who does that? We don't get down and say, Lord, please, when I make my annual checkup tomorrow at the doctor's, let the test come up positive for cancer. Lord, please let me get COVID. And we don't pray for these things. And yet they come anyway, isn't it? They come without our praying for them. So similarly, just as Kalena Sarvata Gabhira Talabyate Dukavad Anyata Hashukam, just as misery comes without our asking or wanting or praying for it, similarly, happiness will come without our asking, wanting it, or praying for it. Why? Because it's already fixed up by our past lives. The only thing we do is by our present activities, we create our future. The poet said, we shape ourselves the joys and fears of which the coming life is made and fill our future's atmosphere with sunshine or with shade. The tissue of the life to be, we weave in colors all our own. And in the field of destiny, we reap where we have sown. What is the result of trying for more than your quota of happiness? The result, according to Prahlad Maharaj, of trying for happiness, as everybody is in this present world, it simply creates more suffering. That's all it is. Prahlad Maharaj says, in essence, the greatest cause of suffering in this material world is our trying for more happiness. Prabhupada said, when you build a skyscraper, you build a skyscraper 20 stories up, somewhere there's a hole. You don't go up 20 stories without digging a hole somewhere. So every time you try for excessive happiness, excessive sense gratification, over and above what's minimally necessary to keep body and soul together, you're also creating for yourself excessive pain. The happiness lasts only a moment. The pain, the regret, the purposefulness, the unfulfillment, the distress, the depression lasts for years and years and years. Prahlad Maharaj, Sukha Dukkha Moksha Sankalpaya Kamanam Sadap Notihaya Dukkam Anihaya Sukha Ritaham. Prahlad says, in this material world, everyone is a materialist. They define themselves in terms of this material body, and they think that the satisfaction or stimulation of the sense of this material body will at some point give them happiness and diminish their distress. And they act according to that assessment. But Prahlad says something different. He says, the actual fact of the matter is that you're happy only as long as you do not endeavor for happiness. Your misery begins as soon as you launch out for happiness. Therefore, a sober person should not be ambitious in order to reduce the unhappy conditions of life and expand or inflate the happy conditions of life, because it's a useless endeavor. Bhagavad Gita, Kṛṣṇa says, Prakrite kriyamanani gunaya ahankara vimudha. It is only a function of false ego to think that you can control your destiny. And every time you compromise ethical principles, every time you stray into a gray area where you're not sure what you're doing is right, every time you exploit another for your own personal sense gratification, everybody's doing it. Nations, communities are just alliances for the purpose of commonly exploiting others with whom we share the planet. Everybody's doing that. So that's not reducing misery and increasing happiness. It's increasing misery and reducing happiness. Everybody is suffering from the misconception under the bodily concept of life. Prabhupada says, the whole culture, the whole material world, they're running around trying to make their position comfortable and secure, although everybody sees that it's simply not possible to make your situation either comfortable or secure at any stage of development. So being captivated by the illusory advancement of material civilization, people are, from our point of view, wasting their time, not just wasting their time, but actually using their time in order to generate more suffering. Isn't that the definition of a madman? Isn't that the definition of someone who's not in their right mind? When in fact, we learn from Shukadeva Goswami, Ata Kavir Namashuya Varada. The whole show is just a jugglery of names only, nothing but a bewildering creation of matter like earth, air, fire, water, mind, intelligence, and false ego. Now, on the other hand, those who are devotees, who are fortunate enough to have intersected with a pure devotee of the Lord and be exposed to the pure, unalloyed practice of devotional service, they do not see anything as separate from Kṛṣṇa. They see everything as connected with Kṛṣṇa, just as you see the leaves, the fruits, and the twigs, all of them as not separate from the tree, but connected with the tree. It is said in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, 3rd canto, Yatam mukad vishvuganam damid bhapisha apyat maimani yatadda pritak umakat. Fire is flames, it is smoke, it is sparks. Yatam mukad vishvuganam. Flame is fire, smokes, and sparks. The smoke could be compared to the material energy. The sparks can be compared to the living beings, and the flame can be compared to Bhagavan. The fire can be described in terms of smoke, it can be described in terms of sparks, it can be described in terms of flame. And the descriptions might vary a little bit. You might use different adjectives to describe the smoke, you might use different adjectives to describe the spark, and you might use different adjectives to describe the flame as a matter of practicality. But we all know that whether you're talking about sparks, smoke, or flame, it's all one. It's all the fire. The devotees don't see anything. They don't see. They may see, I mean, we're practical. They may see the spark, smoke, and flame. They may see matter. They may see spirit. But seeing also the Supreme Spirit, everything is one. Although fire has different features, there's still no difference between the different three aspects of the fire. So when people criticize the devotees, many Hindus, they're radical liberals. They insist that yata mata tata pata, whatever you do, it's going to lead to Kṛṣṇa. Whatever is your opinion, whatever, you make up your own path. It's all good. It's all good. These Kṛṣṇas, they're such deadbeats. They're on such a downer. They won't acknowledge the worship of the demigods. They won't acknowledge becoming one. We had a Hindu temple open here 2 years after our Spanish Fork temple opened. I went to the temple opening. It was packed. This is probably 2003. And the lady who had spearheaded the whole effort to build the temple, South Indian lady, she got up in front of a packed audience, 500 people. She gave a talk. And at the conclusion of her talk, she said, if we all donate, if we all serve, if we all support the priests, if we all do everything to keep this temple strong and vital, then our reward will be that we will all become one. She said this to 500 members of the Indian community. And everybody's like, yeah, yes, we'll all become one. And I'm like, Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa. And I had one lady, Gujarati lady, called me up and said, "True, I have a problem. There's 33 million demigods. How am I going to satisfy all of them?" Now, that's confusion. That's a disservice. Why only Kṛṣṇa? Why not the demigods as well? They're part of Kṛṣṇa. Isn't worshiping the part the same as worshiping the whole? No, thank you very much. It is not. You have to put food in the mouth. You have to satisfy the stomach through the mouth. There are other orifices, the nose, the ears, the eyes, but you cannot stuff food in the ears or the eye. You can say it's all one. They're all holes. So what difference you use this hole or that hole? But the fact of the matter is, it's only by putting food through the mouth that the stomach is satisfied and that the body gets strong. You may be very liberal. You may say, why only the mouth? Give a chance to the other orifices. But that liberality will result in the weakening and ultimate death of the body. You may say, water the twigs, fruits, and leaves. Why exclusively water the root of the tree? And that may sound very good. And it may give a lot of busyness. If you're going to not just water the root of the tree, but then one person can water the root of the tree in 5 minutes, 2 or 3 times a day. But if you're going to water the flower, that gives a lot of jobs. That gives a lot of employment. You can have dozens of people watering the flowers and leaves and roots for hours and hours a day. And you think, look at me, I put all these people to work. But the tree's going to die. That's the problem. So we've got so many social causes. We've got so many earth save. We've got fight, save the whales, save the dolphins, save the rainforests. We've got Habitat for Humanity. We've got so many good causes, and we're not saying they're not good causes. And they're staffed by so many well-intentioned people. But the problem is that it just creates confusion. And it not only does it not ultimately do any good, but it actually increases our misery, our confusion, our suffering. We have more nonprofits in the world today than ever before. We have more people dedicating themselves to nonprofit causes than ever before in the history of the world. And the result is the earth is dying. The society is dying. Our species is dying. Other species are dying. Though we're trying perhaps more mightily and have more resources to water the root of the tree, to water the leaves, flowers, and fruits of the tree, or to put food in the ear, the result is not only that we're not improving things, but the misery is increasing exponentially. So unless and until one puts Kṛṣṇa in the equation, it will not be possible for us to achieve the much desired peace, prosperity, contentment, purposefulness, and meaningfulness in our lives for which we're anxious. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. That's my allotted time of 45 minutes plus 4. Any questions or comments?
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Such wonderful, detailed and discussion on this topic and sharing about this verse. Let's see if devotees have some comments or questions. Please feel free to ask at this point. You can unmute yourself or raise your hand.
Prabhuji, Dhamma Pranam. It's always a great opportunity to listen to you through Shubhraj Prabhuji's effort. So Prabhuji, even if I take away current material knowledge, the knowledge was imparted to Lord Brahma. It came through from Kṛṣṇa only. And that is only compiled by the Vajdev. So if Kṛṣṇa wanted to us to know him only and not to do anything else, so why all the knowledge came to Brahma, and why he ultimately was compile? Because all the knowledge came to Krishna only.
It's the perspective. If you're a pure devotee, you don't see anything but Krishna. You don't see anything but devotional service, and you're on the path back to home, back to Godhead. So you want that for everybody. You don't want anything less than that. Krishna, in one sense, he loves you too much to leave you where you are. You know, we tend to push back against devotional service, against the advice of the great saints and sages to simplify our life, to minimize our material needs. We think, I'm okay, it's okay just to slowly go back home, back to Godhead, and stops and starts incrementally. But Krishna really loves us too much to leave us there, to leave us in our comfort zone. He wants to get us back to home, back to Godhead as soon as possible, because he misses us. And the pure devotees, they reflect that mood of Krishna. They're not patient. Just like the physician, he doesn't want the patient to linger. He doesn't want the patient just to get slightly better, slightly better, slightly better, slightly better. He would like the patient to get completely cured as soon as possible. And he's not going to prolong the disease. He's not satisfied. The physician who truly has the best interest of the patient at heart will not do anything to prolong the disease. He will try to get him as healthy as possible, as quickly as possible. That's what Krishna wants. That's what the pure devotees want. However, practical matter, the fact is that as much as Krishna wants to pull us along, we drag our heels, we dig on our heels, and we don't want to go up to the level of pure devotional service. Well, we see that when people worship Shiva, they get a nice house, they get a beautiful wife, they get wealth. And so we're thinking, Krishna worship's okay, but maybe later when I'm older, I'll live a more simple life. And then at the end, after retirement, then I'll come to Krishna. But for right now, Shiva worship and the benefits of Shiva look pretty good. Well, okay, if you're going to be a materialist, at least go through Krishna's devotee, Lord Shiva. He's also a Vaishnava, and under his shelter, he can gradually uplift you. So the confusion and the lack of what you might call forthrightness is not from Krishna's part, it's from our part, because we're so reluctant to go back home, back to Godhead. Then the concession is made, okay, if you're going to do this, then do it under these conditions. If you're going to do that, do it under these conditions. If you're going to do that, do it under these conditions. For instance, the most obvious example is eating meat. There are some concessions for eating meat if people insist on eating meat. But it's not easy. There are a lot of rules and regulations. There are a lot of conditions. And after you fulfill those, for instance, Prabhu said you can't just, even 100 years ago in India, you couldn't eat meat in daylight. You had to wait till the dark moon night. There's a reason why the dark moon night, because nobody can see you. Nobody can see you. You do it when there's no moon out, because that way it's secret. And then you don't kill any higher animal, but you kill a goat or something. After doing that for some time, then it's got to occur to you, maybe it would be easier just to eat fruits and vegetables and grains, Krishna Prasadam, instead of sneaking out 1 or 2 nights a month and like a criminal, cutting the throat of an animal, letting its blood, and then cooking its flesh. So the pure devotees who represent Krishna, they would like the diseased persons of this material world to be as cured within this lifetime and go back to home, back to Godhead at the end of this current body. But all the other stuff, all the other things that are spun out are just because of our unwillingness to do that, and giving us some chance to gradually become cured of the material contamination. But if we meet a pure devotee, then we can take the medicine. The process will be very fast because there's nothing more powerful than chanting the holy names in the association of pure devotees and taking prasadam. And we can accelerate the process immensely. It can be catapulted forward through the mercy of a pure devotee of the Lord.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Haribol.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Yes, Kṛṣṇa, you have a question?
Hey Krishna Prabhuji, Kanvatinam all devotees. Thank you so much for such a wonderful class, Prabhuji. In the beginning of the class, you said that most of us spend 3/4 life, I'm talking about myself, in worshipping different demigods and in a state of complete confusion before coming to Krishna consciousness. Now, when I understand and I realize everything clear, sometimes I find it very difficult to convince others, at least to start reading Bhagavad Gita or do one round of chanting, or just to convince them, okay, that, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is the supreme scripture of Lord. So what should be the key points I should always keep in mind when I'm trying to convince someone that what's the difference between Lord and the demigods? Because everyone has a strong faith in their own demigods. As you said, that those who are worshipping Lord Shiva, they believe very strictly in the Shiva Puran. Someone who's worshipping Durga Devi, they believe very, they are not sometimes ready to understand. So this is my point of difficulty. Can you just guide me what should be my efforts towards?
I did pujas in Salt Lake City for many years. Before there was a, Sanskrit trained priests, before there was the Hindu temple. I was the go-to guy for pujas, for mundans and griya praveshas and weddings and all. And we just got busy with the color festivals and all. And I didn't really want to do pujas anymore. And then the Hindu temple took up the pujas. And so it worked out pretty well. But there are many families that for the last 30, 35 years, they insist on me. They insist on me. I'd say, well, I'm retired. No, it's got to be you. It's got to be you. And why is that? Because I was there, with the Garbhadan Sanskar. I was there when their child was born. I was there when they wrote their first letter. I was there when I shaved their head. And so they only want me. They don't want, I say, well, there's priests now in Salt Lake City that were trained in the Gurukul in Tirupati. I say, wouldn't you rather have them? I say, no, I want you. And I like to think it's because, I'm a pure devotee and I just shine so effulgently, but I rather suspect they just think of me as their good luck charm. Our family has done so well. We've been healthy. My son's a doctor. My daughter's a lawyer. And Caru's in there. Caru's in there. He's in the equation, and so we it's worked so far. So let's just keep going with Caru. We don't want to change. And so I tell this little story because I think that a lot of the attraction for demigods that people have in their families is for the same reason. It's they're taking the demigod as their good luck charm. We're doing good, so why should we switch to Kṛṣṇa? And that's fine. I mean, I can understand the reasoning, but it's faulty reasoning. It's taking you in the wrong direction. And so what we can do, we can be the best devotees that we can be. We can achieve satisfaction and meaning and purpose. And you see that those families who are ISKCON families from the Indian community, they have a much broader perspective. The kids, our kids in our community in Salt Lake City, they're president of the debate society, they're winning scientific awards, they're the top academic achievers. But there's also something about them because they're devotees and they're parents of devotees that's extremely attractive. It's not there in the other kids who are academically successful, and they are truly leaders. The other kids look up to them. The other kids want what they have. So there will come a time in everybody's life, like I said, Kṛṣṇa loves us too much to leave us as demigod worshipers, to leave us as mental speculators or fruitive workers. So you've opened the door, you've cracked the window and let a little bit of light into their lives. You've given them some indication and direction. And most especially if you're of good character, if you're appreciated and respected by people in general, then Kṛṣṇa will bring them to devotional service. You can't do everything. Prakriti, in fact, if you're frustrated, that's false ego. You say, well, I gave him all the best arguments and still he didn't say. That's just false ego. You think you're the doer. Kṛṣṇa is the only doer. All you can do is introduce the light of Kṛṣṇa consciousness. Kirata Halinda, Halinda Bikasha Abhirisha, Yene Chapa, Sujanti Tajmaya Pravishnave Namaha. Let that powerful beam of Kṛṣṇa consciousness into their lives, and then Kṛṣṇa will bring about those circumstances. They may be successful. Their kids may be doctors and lawyers and all, but still, when you reach the end of life and you haven't exercised the soul, you're not going to be happy. You're going to cast about for what it was you missed. And you'll be there. You'll be a phone call away. You're a neighbor. You're a friend. You're an example. You're in their mind and in their consciousness. So we just do what we can do, which is just planting the seeds. But you can't provide the rain. You can't provide the sun. You can't make the seed grow. And if you're frustrated that people are not becoming devotees, that's a little bit of false ego. Just do what you can. Plant the seeds. Let Kṛṣṇa water them, nourish them, grow them. He will do that. He's using you as his instrument. You're the guru that shows them the path. So be happy and be satisfied that Kṛṣṇa is using you in that way. But don't think of yourself as the doer. It's my request.
Thank you, friends. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Mataji. This is one of the commonly asked questions, especially amongst the Indian kind of devotees, families. Thank you. I think Subrat Prabhu has a question as well. Please, Prabhuji, you can go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you. Prabhuji, actually, I have the same question like Kashish Mataji, but many people worship demigod because of fear. Like, if you don't worship, so this may happen to me or my husband, or something bad may happen in my life. So how to explain to them?
Well, again, I can go back to my own example. I think some people want me to come back and do the puja because they're afraid. They're afraid to not have me. They think they might jinx their run of good luck if they don't have Caru. Just like Nanda Maharaj, he said to Kṛṣṇa, well, why should we worship Govardhan Hill? We've been worshiping Indra for as long as I can remember. Probably his father did it, and his father did it before him. And Nanda Maharaj thought, well, I mean, if we're on this string of prosperity, we worship Indra, we get rains, we get good crops. It's happened year after year after year after year. Well, this is tried and proven. What would we gain by changing something which has been going on for such a long period of time? So there is that element of fear there. What if? But Kṛṣṇa, he assured him, he said that we have a more direct connection to Govardhan Hill. We have a more direct connection to the cows. Krishna's Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmani Taya Jagati Taya Krishna Go. There's nothing that pleases Krishna more than worship of the cows. And the Govardhan Hill provided the fresh grasses to support the cows. And then, of course, when Indra did get angry, and he did initially strike all the inhabitants of Vrindavan with fear, they turned to Krishna, and Krishna in a spectacular way. I mean, Krishna doesn't leave any room for doubt in that story. He makes a very, very strong and unequivocal statement that if you neglect the worship of the demigods, but use that same energy and that same paraphernalia, and you switch it to me, you're not going to be the loser. I mean, this is what the Bhagavad Gita is all about, you know. Hum tum sarva papibhyo mokshayasya ma sutta. You say that many people worship the demigod out of fear, but Krishna is saying, you know, if you worship me, say the demigods, he's specifically saying you have this personal guarantee from the Supreme Personality of Godhead in practically the last verse of the Bhagavad Gita. Don't fear. Don't fear. So all of us who are on this call, we've come up to that level. We believe Krishna, and we're practicing that in our lives. And again, I can say to you what I said to the other lady, Kosha Mataji, that you can't make things happen. You can only be an example in your life. You can only, you know, the physician can give the patient the medicine, doesn't mean the patient's going to take it. Or you can give them a medicine, say, take 4 a day, and maybe they only take 1 a day. So by taking 1 a day, they don't become cured. They get a little better maybe, but they don't become cured. They just kind of prolong their disease. But you've given them the medicine, and you can't really do more than that. Krishna is the physician. If they're going to come to Krishna consciousness, it's going to be through Krishna. Krishna shows in the strongest way possible, in the most graphic demonstration of his power, how it doesn't matter whether Indra gets upset or not, or Chandra or Vayu or any other demigod or Ganesh or anybody, because Krishna's in charge of all the demigods. Another point to consider is that the demigods are more happy if you worship Krishna than if you worship them. They're devotees of Krishna. And so if you're a devotee of Krishna, you get more blessings from the demigod than if you create this disturbance of worshiping other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The demigods will not only generally not oppose you, but they will support you if you worship Krishna. Now, Indra, he opposed the inhabitants, it's true, but that story is very instructive. You know, Indra was put into illusion so that we could learn a lesson. And then Krishna took it upon, the inhabitants of Vrindavan did not have to do anything to cause Indra to back off. Krishna took care of it. Krishna took care of it. So if you neglect the worship of the demigod and use that energy and paraphernalia for Krishna, and the demigod becomes upset for some reason, you still don't have to worry. Krishna's telling you, I've got this. So you got to believe him. Because if you don't have faith in what Krishna says, then you don't have anything. And your friends to whom you're ministering, they may not be at that point yet, but that's okay. You know, they'll get there sometime if and when Krishna makes the arrangements.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Sumit Prabhu, for the next question, and thank you, Charu Prabhu, for the kind response. Anyone has any last questions or comments before we pause for today?
I have a comment. It's always a joy to be with you all. I'm honored that you invited me back, I don't know, 5 or 6 times. And I hope that I didn't offend anybody or make any terrible mistakes, so that we can get together sometime again in the future and enjoy this wonderful sadhu sangha.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. It's always our great fortune and to hear from you and to clarify our doubts, and you give such wonderful response, not just through knowledge but through practical realization also, because you have lived this throughout your life for the last 50 years, serving Srila Prabhupada's mission, serving thousands of devotees all across the globe. So we are very, very grateful to you. And we'll express that gratitude by loudly chanting 3 times. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Praise God, Prabhu ki jai. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Thank you. Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namo. Thank you so much. Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.